When I was 16 years old, I felt my first call to ministry. I was at summer camp. Of course. That's where it always happens. It was one of the final nights of camp that year, and there was an altar call at worship that night for anyone who felt like they were being called into ministry. See, the speaker, he did a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and when he got to the end, I felt this stirring in my heart. To go to the altar. My heart and my soul were telling me to get up and go. But my mind had my body paralyzed. My feet felt like they were stuck in concrete. I felt the call to go to the altar, but I didn't. In that moment, that call felt too heavy. It felt like it would be too much. It felt too scary. There were too many uncertainties. What would this call look like? What would my classmates think about me saying my future plans are to become a pastor when some of them didn't even know that I was a Christian? I was withholding something from God. He asked me to give up control of my future and allow Him to create a path. But I wouldn't. See, instead of allowing Him to take the reins, instead of allowing Him to take control, I took the reins. And this led me down some wrong paths. So today we're finishing up our sermon series on altars. And this sermon series is called Altered, with a D at the end, 7S. But this week we're going to discuss the transformation that occurs at the altar. How does an altar transform us? When we come to the altar, transformation will occur. It's a fact. When we come to the altar, we surrender something. We bring an offering. It's easy to bring something that we don't really like in our lives. It's easy to bring the sin that we've been stuck in for years and years to the altar. It's easy to give up the bad things in our lives. But will you give up the good things? Will you give up the things that make you happy? In Genesis chapter 22, Abraham is asked to do this with his son Isaac. Now his son Isaac was his only son. Not only that, Isaac was a promise from God. God promised Abraham that in his old age, his wife would have a child. His wife was 90 years old when she had Isaac. Abraham was 100. It was a miracle. And they had to wait so long for the promise. They had to wait so long for the blessing of Isaac. But Abraham was asked to give that up. To give it up in an offering to God. They had to travel to Mount Moriah, which from their home was about 50 to 60 miles. Now for me, I can get 50 to 60 miles on a highway in about an hour, right? If you get me on an interstate, I can make it in 45 minutes. But they had to walk or use some sort of camel or donkey to help them bring the things to the mountain, to the base of this mountain. And this entire 50 to 60 miles, Abraham's thinking, why do I have to give this up? God, you gave this to me. Why are you now asking me to give it up? Can you imagine what might have been going on in his head? Giving up his one and only son that he waited so long to receive. See, they reach the mountain, and this happens. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. I imagine Abraham was crying in that moment, strapping his one and only son to the altar. It goes on, then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham, here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram, caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the place, "The Lord will provide." And to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." Can you imagine being Abraham in this moment? God hasn't told him the plan, hasn't told him that Abraham actually won't be sacrificed. He's just asked Abraham to do it. And Abraham's moments away from this act of obedience. And then God intervenes. The plan was never for Isaac to be sacrificed. The plan was for Abraham to lay him at the altar, to be willing to give him up, to be willing to give up the promise, the blessing. As we get ready to sing our call to prayer, I ask you a question. Are you prepared to give your blessings to God? Are you willing to give up your career that you may love, or you may hate it, and it'll be easy to give it up? Are you willing to give up the thing that you love? Are you willing to give up the hobbies that make you happy? Are you willing to bring your heartfelt surrender to the altar? Please join me in our call to prayer. So Abraham is willing to give up his only son. He's willing to give up the promise as an offering to God. What are you willing to give up at the altar? I pick up the story from earlier, from when I was 16 years old. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit in that story to last summer. When I was asked to counsel at Camp Adventure. And while at Camp Adventure, I felt that call again. I felt that call, and even though I was in a different role, I was no longer a camper, of course. I was a counselor. And now as a counselor, you're kind of babysitting the kids for the week, making sure that they get to where they need to be on time, making sure that they're having fun, making sure that they're getting enough food, making sure that they're cared for. And although my main focus that week was serving others, I still got something out of it. In that moment, I felt that call again, to give up control and allow God to take me where He wanted me to be, to go into ministry. I remember coming home from camp, and I met with Pastor Justin in that next, I think it was Monday, and we discussed this call. And he presented another opportunity for me to go to high school camp. And I went to high school camp, the same place where I'd felt that call when I was 16. And I felt it again. This time I gave up control. I said, I don't know where you're going to lead me. I don't know what this will look like, but I give up control. And it led me here, in this position, speaking today. That decision was the greatest moment of my life. It's been the greatest thing of my life. Is this. It was on the other side of the altar. It was on the other side of giving up the one thing I want most in the world, which is control. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 through 2 reads this: Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. If there's one thing in my life I like more than anything, it's control. My favorite sport in high school was tennis, because in tennis, there's one other person on the court, and it's my opponent. I control what happens on my side of the court. I can also control what happens on his side of the court. In basketball, I have 4 other teammates, and I have to trust those teammates. I love control over my life. When I have control, everything's on me. When things go wrong, it's on me. At 6:48 in Revolution on Sunday nights, the nights where I don't have to do anything are the nights where I'm the most anxious. The nights where somebody else is leading the game and somebody else is doing the message. The food's always covered. I never have to worry about that, thank God. But the nights where I don't have any control over what happens during that night, when the kids are doing all of it, when it's student-led, are the nights where I'm the most anxious. We as humans, we want control. We want to know what's next. We want to know the plan. God asked me to give that up. Give up control. If it were to go my way, I'd still be at Purdue. But I'm allowing God to work in my life. I'm allowing God to take control. It was hard. I cried. I argued. I doubted. I questioned God. I questioned what this would look like. But giving up control has been the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. We've been singing a song at the Current for this sermon series. And it's our tweener song, which is the song between part 1 and part 2 of the message. And this song, it's called At the Altar. And it's sang by 2 of the most beautiful voices in worship music right now. If you get the chance, I would listen to it. It's called At the Altar. Just At the Altar. That's all it's called. It's become one of my favorites over the past year. It released about a year, 2 years ago. It's become one of my favorites. There's a few lines, a few parts of that song I want to highlight. The chorus of that song is this: where the tears of the desperate reach the feet of the Savior, nothing I wouldn't offer, there's no waste at the altar. Where the heart of surrender meets the hands of the Maker, nothing I wouldn't offer, there's no waste at the altar. When you come to the altar, there will be tears. You will struggle to give up the thing that God is asking you to give up. When you come to the altar, we come with a heart of surrender. Surrendering whatever it is that He wants from us. The first part of the bridge is this. It says, "Come lay your broken dreams at the altar, and every victory at the altar. Fear and anxiety cannot live here. There's no waste at the altar." No matter how big or small you think your offering is, there is no waste. God will use it. In the story from Genesis with Abraham and Isaac, Abraham is offering his son. Abraham is offering up the promise in obedience to God. In the end of that passage that I read, we see Abraham names the mountain, "The Lord will provide." Because Isaac never was sacrificed. There was a substitute for Isaac. It was a ram that was nearby. The Lord provided through his obedience. When you come and lay your broken dreams at the altar, when you come and lay your victories at the altar, and you leave them there, it's not I lay it down and then as I'm walking away I pick it back up and I carry it around with me again. And there will be things that you will have to lay down several times. There will be things where you lay it down at the altar and the next day it somehow finds its way back to you. There will be days when you forget what happened at the altar that day. Every morning when I wake up, I want to take back control. Because I don't know what's next. You know, people ask me all the time, what's the plan? What's your end goal? Like, what is after this? And I don't know. I don't know where God's leading me. He hasn't told me yet. But he's told me where he wants me to be right now. Every morning I have to give up that control. No matter how big or small you think it is, there is no waste at the altar. You just have to bring it so that he can use you. When you lay it down at the altar, he begins to work in your life. He begins to work in your life in ways that you could never have imagined. You just have to come. You have to come and lay it all down. For some of you, it's something very small. For some of you, it's something very big. And just because somebody brings a bigger offering than you doesn't mean that it's any less valuable to God. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. There is no waste at the altar. You just have to bring it so that he can begin to use you and use it. As I get ready to close, I ask the question, what are you willing to give up at the altar? If the answer isn't everything, it should be. Because when we come and lay down our heart, when we come and lay down our lives at the altar, God will take you to places that you could have never imagined.